This evening, I am going to talk about what fuels fear, or what keeps fear moving and cranked up. Anyone here that has no fear at all? No fear.
I don't believe I do.
Don't you? Come here.
Okay. Really?
Yeah, come here. Well, that's right. I can't put you up here. I just remembered. I'm afraid to put you up here because you're source.
Oh, right.
Because we're in. Darn, it was already de-pants you. Or no, just kind of scary. Huh?
That's not fear. That's embarrassment.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. It's got me. So there's no difference between those two?
I don't believe so, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Could you maybe say when you say fear, how you understand that?
So fear manifests lots of different ways, and it could be embarrassment. It could show up as embarrassment of fear of what people think of you. If you're not afraid of what people are thinking of you, you're probably not going to be embarrassed. Maybe a little bit, but not near as much as you would be if I brought you up here and yanked down your drawers. Of course, I'd lawsuit, then I'd be afraid. A terrible situation for everybody. I'd be really confused, and I'd have to get an attorney and shut down the temple. But isn't it so that that fear is something that shows up, and it might have another persona or another mask on the front of it, like embarrassment. But really behind the whole thing, there's some kind of fear going on. And the opposite of fear, of course, which is also can be difficult, is hope. Hoping, living in some kind of future. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a little bit of fear. I mean, if a bear comes into the room, you should leave. Get out, go out the window, go out somewhere. And also, we're not saying that you couldn't hope for better weather, so your picnic that you planned tomorrow couldn't occur. But what we do is we tend to go to extremes with those two, and especially fear tends to kind of run us sometimes. Fear of being judged or being made a fool of, and the idea of the topic here is what fuels that, what keeps that smoldering and keeps that going, so that it's difficult for us to live our life without some kind of fear, or without at least it being based on you could say unreasonable trepidation about whatever is happening. So the fear seems to be some underlying presumption, and that seems to be where the fuel is coming from. That's where the gasoline, the propane, the firewood is coming out of the presumption. And the presumption is that there's something endangered. There's something that is threatened. Like if you get embarrassed, you do something that's foolish, and everyone turns to look at you, and you feel some embarrassment. That's coming from feeling that there's someone here that is threatened by what? By other people's ideas, other people's thoughts, other people's opinions about that. We're not saying you go the other way and you ignore it, or you shut down on it, or you say, like some people, we often hear people say in a very boisterous way, well, I don't care what people think. If you stop and reflect on that at all, and if you're at all open to what you see in front of you when someone says that, you'll see that there's fear behind that. That's why they say that, because they want to present a facade, or a facade, as I've heard it pronounced. They want to provide a false front to things, so that you can't see. So that's their way of, I don't care what people think. I've never cared what people think. I always do what I want, live my life, make my own. I'm my own man or my own woman, which I don't hear that too much from women. But. So in the Heart Sutra, which we chanted this evening in the translation by Red Pine, there are lines in here. And this is, unless you've studied this or are familiar with it, even though it's in English, it's still difficult to understand what's being said. But it says, therefore, Shariputra, without attainment, bodhisattvas or enlightening beings or people who are trying to understand enlightenment, they're working on, that's their path of being awake, being completely sane, no more craziness, no more fighting with himself, no more fighting with anybody, no more warfare at all. This doesn't mean that if you come up to a bodhisattva and threaten him or her that they're going to roll over and let you kick them or something. Probably not. Bodhisattvas take refuge. In other words, take refuge, find safety. Talking about fear again. Find safety in prajna paramita. This is the wisdom which has gone beyond, gone past plus and minus, gone past belief and disbelief, gone past form and emptiness, as it says. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no sensation, no perception, no memory, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no shape, no sound, no smell, no taste, no feeling, and no thought, no element of perception from eye to conceptual consciousness. And goes on and on. That's not something you understand right away. It takes a while. And without the sitting practice of meditation, conceptually, you're probably not going to reach that understanding. How do you know you've reached the understanding? You no longer search for anything. If you're searching for something, then you are screwed, I guess. No, if you're searching for something, if you really are searching, then let's find a way where you actually sit down and, if you're searching for something in the grass, you lost your car keys or something, it's good to have plenty of light there. It's good to get a flashlight if it's dark, or maybe it's possible to have a systematic way of scanning that area. So same thing with meditation practice, to find out about the nature of fear. If you're dealing with that's difficulty, then using the sitting practice of meditation. It's not about believing in Buddhism or believing in anything for that matter. Belief and disbelief are a disease of the mind, as the 9th century monk Sokuzan called it, only I think he called it picking and choosing. So bodhisattvas take refuge in prajna paramita. In other words, they see that the not two-ness, it's empty and it's full at the same time. They actually see that, not just a concept. You can read this and have the concepts, memorize this and use this, but to really realize this, the concepts no longer even need to be there unless you're trying to teach someone. Then you need the concepts. And then here's probably the most important line in here: to live in prajna paramita and live without walls of the mind, without walls of the mind, and thus without fears. They see through delusion, and finally nirvana, or peace. All Buddhas past, present, and future also take refuge in prajna paramita and realize unexcelled perfect enlightenment or awakening to their true nature. You should therefore know the great mantra of prajna paramita, the great mantra, the mantra of great magic. Why is it magic? It's because it is so shocking and so amazing when you discover it and you realize that everyone else is looking right past it. That's why it's sometimes called a wish-granting gem in the ancient times, because it's so amazing when you discover it. You understand. It was right under your nose all this time. Magic. The unexcelled mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, which heals all suffering and is truth, not false. It says the mantra equal to the unequal. It's another conundrum or another thing that is talking about duality. And then it goes on, gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisattva, which is Sanskrit for gone, gone, gone beyond, gone completely beyond, awake, so be it. Or as Kobanchino Roshi, my teacher, who passed away in 2002, translated this, falling apart, falling apart, falling apart, nothing to do. I like that last one. I would add one line, falling apart, falling apart, falling apart, or 2 words rather, completely collapsed, nothing to do. So how do we deal with this the situation of fear, and how do we work with this? If you go to war with it, it tends to cover itself up. It tends to hide out. So if you go to it in that way, it seems to be necessary to see it arise and then begin to see the way in which it's getting its nourishment. What is it that feeds the fear? It seems that it is belief in a solid being who can win or lose, a solid being who can, for that matter, live or die. It goes all the way. That's why it's called a spiritual path, is because you're not just dealing with a simple success and failure situation. You're actually transcending those polarities. And to transcend those polarities doesn't mean to no longer have them. It's just to see that they are not two, no longer separate. In the fancy Indian tradition, it's called Advaita, or non-duality. And we have this very two-ness or multitude of things, and the Buddhist teaching is called the 10,000 things. We have all of this stuff all over the place that is that ego feeds on and says, well, sure, there is two. There's winning. I know what it means to win. I know what it means to lose. And we're constantly reinforcing or fueling the fear. It doesn't look like fuel, but it is. That constant conceptual fabrications and elaborations on everything, the constant story. If anything arises in your mind, like right now, if you do anything with it, if you reinforce it with your opinions, that's right, that's right. Or if you try to take it apart or destroy it with your beliefs, well, that's crazy. Well, I'm not going there. I'm not believing that. I don't really believe that. Or if you shut down, distract yourself, move away, and don't really look at what is in front of you, you are fueling fear. It might not show up today, but it will show up more than likely at some point when causes and conditions come together in such a way that you would fare much better if you were not at war with yourself or with anything, or with anyone or any idea. And don't misunderstand, this does not mean that you should go along with everybody. You should just never disagree or be a real sweetheart. Do I look like a sweetheart? Don't answer that. Shoka.
How do forms help us to relate to fear?
Give you a construct that actually protects you long enough so that you can look at the fear in increments slowly. So you can slowly, at your own speed, you can slowly work with it. If you don't have a construct for doing that, then it's kind of a free-for-all. And then opinions come in and ideas come in. And then we start trying to calculate, figure things out. Figuring things out does not work. If you think you can figure things out, you're wrong. I just thought I would look at you guys. When I say, I'm not saying you can't figure out your taxes or figure out what's good by going on Google and Googling something, kind of get an idea of where you can get this or get that or get this service or that. I'm not saying you can't calculate and figure, but calculating and figuring what is fundamentally true and valuable for you personally in a deep way that will help you deal with the deepest parts of your consciousness with hope and fear, for one thing. What really runs you? Ask yourself tomorrow at noon, tonight at midnight, or 3 a.m. Ask yourself, what is really running you? Where is your energy coming from? Is your energy coming from trying to keep things away, or is your energy coming from trying to climb a mountain? Where's your energy coming from? What's it based on? So coming back to Shoka's question, forms, we're not talking about believing in stuff. So I'm not saying that some spiritual paths or religions don't have a strong belief system. It's just another way of doing it. It doesn't mean that people who have beliefs are wrong or correct. That's just the way they happen to be functioning, and that's apparently what they need to do. How do we know that? Because that's what they're doing. They're not doing they're not doing atheism or being an agnostic or middle of the road or going from one spiritual path to the next, like a spiritual supermarket. More about forms, more questions, or a different question? Yes.
Not at this point.
Okay, then.
You had contrasted fear and hope.
Yes.
I was wondering how fear contrasts to what's talked about as fearlessness, what that is.
So fearlessness isn't necessarily that you don't have any fear. It's just that it's not like you're without fear, but you have fear, but that doesn't run you. Just like you might have hopes for some particular thing, but it's not running you. It's not, you're always looking at the situation for what it is rather than charging off into some kind of idealized kind of future that you're trying to bring about based on hope. Excuse me. And the same thing with fear. You're not buying into that. There might be some there, but you're fearless in that you understand that you need to look at your situation, your problems, your issues, whatever's happening in your life with a clear eye. You need to really look at it closely, and you need to do it rather than have somebody else, rather than have me tell you to do it, or your mom, your dad, your spouse, your political party, or any other authority. As Kobunchi Roshi said, whom I just quoted a few minutes ago, said, get your own authority. But the way you get your own authority, and this is a difficult one, because you have to see this. If you don't see this, then you'll always be suspicious, is to see there isn't any authority. But if you see there isn't any authority, you see something else. It's not exactly authority, but you see something else.
What is this something else?
Not separate.
How does that act as an authority?
It takes over. You look and you see that nothing is separate. So you did, as Bob Dylan once said, you got to serve somebody. So you might as well start right now and serve whatever needs your help. Serve more.
What does it mean to serve?
It means to dedicate your life to helping others. Is a simple way of putting it. With their permission, not meddling with them based on your preconceptions, which means you might not do much, because usually people won't give you any permission to help them.
So what does serving look like in that situation?
nothing to do.
How is nothing to do with someone who's not giving you permission different from nothing to do when someone has given you permission?
Then you would do whatever they need. Not necessarily what they want, but what they need.
How can you be the judge of what they need?
You don't judge.
Where does that come from? The insight.
It comes from them. Keep coming.
How do you know what they need if they don't know what they need?
You won't know. That's how you know. Because if you know, you're in just as much trouble as they are. Everybody thinks what they know what they need and what they don't need. Anybody in here not very clear on what they need and what they don't need?
Yes, sir.
You know that? What you need?
I believe so.
Well, you're wrong. And any other time I wouldn't tell you that. But since you're in this room, you give me permission to tell you.
Correct.
What?
Correct. I do.
Do what?
You give permission to say that, sir.
Okay. Thanks. Still going in the Army?
Yes, sir.
Don't do that.
I have to.
You need a job?
It's my calling.
It's your calling?
Yes, sir.
You go kill people?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Well, I trust you'll know what to do.
Yes, sir.
Further questions? Yeah. Yes.
Sokuzan from Traverse City asks, what is fear?
I was about to show Michael. Didn't work out. It's the wrong combination of things and lack of permission and all that.
From a higher authority.
Higher authority than me. So I think I know what Sokuzan is asking. Sokuzan is a monk who's up in Traverse City. And I think that it's the obvious thing of fear is you're afraid of something. You're afraid something is threatening you and you need to stop it. But it's very subtle. It's very subtle. Sometimes you can react to fear in any of the lots of different ways, but the three basic ways if fear rises is to go into what we call in Buddhism the three poisons: passion, aggression, and ignorance. And to have fear and go into ignorance, it just means you shut down on it. Even though there's fear there, you shut down. You won't look at it. You'll turn away. You'll go the other way. You'll avoid that situation. You won't investigate it. And if there's if aggression arises, it means that you can't handle that. You're too sensitive to what is showing up. There's too many bear claws in your face, so you will attack it rather than seeing what it is. If you really see what it is, I'm not saying that if it's a bear you shouldn't get the hell out of there, but I'm saying that this is the way we work with any kind of fear: psychological fear, actual fear for our body, or fear for our reputation, like we were talking about earlier, being embarrassed. And so, and you could also, when fear comes up or thinking something is threatened, namely me, I'm being threatened. Someone thinks I'm a bad monk, or I'm saying things wrong, or I'm not teaching the Dharma, or I'm criticizing me in some way, or I'm too old to be doing this, I'm too forgetful, which isn't bad. It's probably something to that. But the fear seems to be covered up. The kind of fear that we're conventionally thinking of is the kind that there's a kind of enjoyment of that. Just like if you watch, some people like to watch horror movies, really scary movies, and other people don't want any part of that. Some people can't watch that. It's just too close to home. It just brings up fears, even though they know it's a movie, won't watch it. And then other people can't wait to watch zombies and, what's the Awful Dead? What is it? The Walking Dead. Yeah. Awful Dead. And that's, if any of you watched The Walking Dead? No. Oh, I've watched it too. Yeah, but eventually, people getting their heads bludgeoned and splitting apart like a watermelon over and over and over. That's a little boring. Yeah. Bad timing. Not good direction. And gruesome also. Ruby, you haven't seen that movie, have you? Well, I hope not, because I think they swear in it. So, anything else from Kozan, since she's off in the distance? It's basically just fear is something. It's just there's just too much openness, and the self-centeredness feels exposed. Feels like it's going to be harmed. Feel like it's being dissed. It's not respected. Where there's all kinds you can come up with all kinds of things, and those are passion. That's the other one of the three poisons. All kinds of things. I'm being disrespected. Passion. So, but underneath that is the actual fear that is there. Yes.
Actually, there is a follow-up plus 3 other questions from 3 other people.
Okay.
So Kozan's follow-up question is, so it sounds like passion, aggression, and ignorance are flavors of fear. Trungpa says the fear is not the problem, it is fear of fear. And her question is, what is the root fear?
The root fear is death. The fear of death. This is the Mara and Mara's daughters. The word Mara translates out of the Sanskrit to mean death, but that is the basic bad guy in Buddhism. This Mara means death. There's several different kinds of Mara: Klesha Mara, Devaputra Mara. What are the other ones? I don't know. They're not coming back to me right now. I just taught them a little while ago, but that was when I had notes. More?
Not from her, but from Steve Eisenberg in Cleveland.
Yeah, Steve.
He says, hello, everything arises according to our thinking, even our authority.
Is that a question?
Yeah, I think that's the word. He spells it A-U-T-O-R-E-T-Y, so I think that's authority.
Everything arises what?
According to our thinking,
Mm-hmm.
even our authority.
Yes, but the kind of thinking that arises out of authority is conceptual. And it's not that you wouldn't have it. It's not that you don't have authority over your children or authority, like if you're a police officer, you have authority within the context of any given form. You're the boss. You have the authority. So we're not saying there isn't, but that's a relative authority. We're saying the ultimate authority, which is what we're looking for, which is why quite often people pray to God or to the Buddha, for that matter, or look for some kind of somebody's got to know how this thing works. So isn't there anybody that understands? And what's being said here is you have to see it yourself. Have to see it yourself, and that may involve some aspect of your own consciousness that is that looks to some kind of a creator. I'm not saying that's wrong. We're just saying we're not promoting. What we're promoting, if anything, is awareness. See it yourself. This sculpture here represents someone who lived 2,500 years ago, who and his very name means the awakened one. And what did he awaken to? Dependent origination, or nothing is separate from anything else. Separated, yes. Separated, but not separate, yes.
How is having a relationship with a teacher helping you to see things for yourself?
It depends on the relationship to the teacher. If the teacher is someone who just wants to control you and tell you what to do and order you around, and that's then probably not so good. You might feel okay because somebody's kind of looking out for you or has the illusion of doing that. But if the teacher is really relating to you in such a way that it helps you stand on your own, get your own authority. Both of my teachers helped me in that way, but it took me years to realize it. For a long time, I thought they weren't really helping me because they didn't give me enough feedback. More?
What is feedback?
The exact information from your point of view that you think you need, and actual feedback is what you, because of their understanding or awareness, seeing exactly what you need. But you have to give them permission to do that. It's like saying, yes, teach me. Teach me. And then when you give that to the teaching person, he or she, if they're a true teacher, teaching out of realization and not out of opinions and ideas and beliefs and other horse manure. If they're teaching out of realization, they won't even know what they're doing with you. They just spontaneously will help you. And that could be any number of things. That's why it says in Myth of Freedom, that function of the guru, which is just as a Sanskrit word that means teacher, the function of the guru is to insult you. And what does that mean? He or she is not going to deliberately hurt you or something. It's just that by relating to that person, you will find that because that person is living here now, that if you're around them very much, it can be very abrasive to be around them because they're looking at who you are, not who you think you are. Yes.
I think not too long ago, you said that if you're around a teacher long enough that they begin to seep into you, or seep into your clothes.
Yeah, it's kind of like mildew.
Can you say more on?
About mildew?
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard to get out of your system. More questions? Do you have a question?
I do.
What is it? Sent you.
It seems like every fear that I have, I can trace back to a fear of not being someone. And does seeing non-duality release us of that?
Yes, because then you, instead of always operating out of fear of not being someone and trying to create some kind of a temporary self that'll do for a while, which is your issue, as you know. And instead you realize the bottom falls out and you no longer care. I'm not saying dismissively don't care, but you realize that you're not separate from any. There's no way you can vanish because you've never appeared. Who you actually are can't come and go. It's like a dream. This is a dream. I'm not saying it's not here, of course. It's here, but not for long. Everything is going. Anything that arises will come apart and leave. It might take 100 years, 2,000 years. So the what you're seeing there, actually, you're a step ahead of most of us in that you're getting flashes of non-existence all the time. So you're actually helped by that. Might not feel very good, but I'm saying don't fight with it. Don't reject it. Don't accept it. I'm not saying you just have to accept that. No, you don't. Don't accept anything. Don't accept any wooden nickels. Don't do anything. But don't take your eyes off them. Keep looking at the way your consciousness keeps going into that area and then getting scared. Just keep doing it. Keep doing that. More.
What is fear then?
Fear of not existing, death, literally.
How could that continue to show up if you see through it?
It will show up and it won't show up. It'll show up, but there won't be anybody to be afraid because you realize you're not a separate being anymore. So therefore, the death of the body will still happen, but who you are is not your body. You're not your body mind is going down, but who you are fundamentally. In our tradition, we say your Buddha nature. Other traditions would say your spirit or your soul or we say Buddha nature because soul sounds like too much like somebody made out of smoke or clouds or cotton candy, puffy. Whereas Buddha nature sounds more like mystical and, kind of way out there. Your Buddha nature, oh my, wonderful, like the mountains in the Himalayas. Buddha nature. More? I didn't think so. That's a mouthful. Let's get way out there. Yes.
From William Murray,
William,
he asks, when I see the fear or any other emotion, is reminding myself to remain aware and just watch it. Any form of meddling with it?
no. Nope. Glad I could help you with that, William. Mark,
What is falling apart in the, what's the object that's falling apart in that?
the ego, the self-centeredness, that paranoid kind of, as Trunk Rinpoche said, that paranoid insurance policy that thinks there's something wrong, something under attack, something is threatened, and is always looking out to see who's trying to, get your wallet or get your identity. Who's, why are they frowning at me, and why, just some kind of concern all the time around and around about who we are and where we're getting. And we even in the meditation community, we still, who's ahead, who's going to get, who's getting ordained, or who's going to get Dharma transmission, who's not, who's going to, it's just, it's all over the place. It's called spiritual materialism, scientific materialism. We're not saying any of that is wrong. We need to get rid of anything. We just need to see what it is and see if is this something that we can work with in an uplifted and sane sort of way. So it's not about being some kind of weirdo who no longer has a self running around saying, "I know who I am. I've lost myself." It's not that kind of self. What we actually see is that there never was anybody in the first place. So there isn't anything. You don't have to get rid of your ego if you see that it's unreal. If it's unreal, then it can do anything it wants to do. It can hang around. It can fall apart. You can get back up and be a zombie. More?
Thank you.
Sheldon.
Seems like that fear is behind it just about everything most of the time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, for me at least, it's not evident most of the time.
Okay.
So how do we even know that we're afraid? How can we, and then how do we follow that to that source of being afraid of not being?
I'm not saying there aren't other ways, but the way we do it here is sit down, hold still, and watch the way you keep creating things and creating things and creating things. The mind is just really, really energetic about creating and creating and creating all the time. And so sit down, hold still, meditate a lot. Really, when I say meditate, all I'm really doing is saying hold very still, eyes open, all the senses open, and watch what continues to move. Because what continues to move, if you look at it long enough, you'll begin to see something about it that will help you personally. And everyone is the same in this way, but it's different. The experience is different, and the combination of things may be different. But the fundamental thing that gets very strong is the ability to look at something without accepting it, without rejecting it, and without shutting down on it. And this is beginning to approximate what in Buddhism is called prajna or jnana or wisdom. Being able to see what things that you actually begin to see, that you see what the Buddha saw. And what did Buddha see? Not separate, dependent origination, that everything that looks like a separate thing is dependent on everything else for its apparent identity. And you get to see that yourself. It just takes time. And sometimes it happens quickly for some people, and for some people it takes long periods of time. It depends on so much on your particular karma, causes and conditions that arise. The same thing that gave you the shape of ears that you have, and your intelligence level, your ability to sing or not sing, all of those, all the causes and conditions that arise, that karma is arising in all kinds of different levels, in the mind, the thought patterns, the tendency to buy into thought patterns or not, the tendency to be tied into your karma, like it is said in one of the practices we have is called the four reminders. And the first of the four reminders goes like this: first, contemplate the preciousness of being free and well favored, difficult to gain, easy to lose. Now I must do something meaningful. So first, contemplate the preciousness, how valuable it is to be free. In other words, free to walk in this room or not. Go do something else. Go to a pizza parlor. Have a beer and talk to your friends, or read a book, or go to a movie, watch Walking Dead. Free, well-favored, and the well-favored thing is something that comes in your karma that you are born as a person that thinks in such a way, or that is not locked into your thought pattern so tightly that you can't come and listen to someone talking about this kind of thing. You actually are open enough. Free and well-favored.
Also in the four reminders, there's something called the three sufferings.
Yeah.
What are the three sufferings?
So the three sufferings are the pain of pain. In other words, heart attack is painful. Emotionally, someone that you love breaking up with you, painful, pain of pain. And it's just painful. There's just being a living being, you're gonna be exposed to a lot of that pain of pain. Then there's the pain of alternation, which is a little more subtle. It means that you're doing pretty good. You're in the middle of a really nice situation, but there's two things. One is the fear that something could come along and destroy it, like having a really great job, a great relationship, and just starting to be paranoid that it won't last, which of course it won't. So there's that kind of suffering. It's like the image I often use, which is one of my favorites, is a full bowl of ice cream is one thing, but half a bowl of ice cream is suffering. Because it won't be long, it'll be gone. So that's the pain of alternation. And the last one is the hardest one to see. And traditionally, it has been said that the only ones who can see this are bodhisattvas, or beings that have begun to realize they're not separate from anything. And that is the pain of the composite, or the pain of conditioned existence. That means that when you see someone else suffering, you resonate with them. You can't ignore their suffering anymore. You can't look at people who are deeply suffering and just take a laissez-faire attitude and say, well, too bad. I got mine. Good luck. Yes.
So how do they react to that?
How does who react?
The people that resonate with someone else's suffering.
They do just that, and then if they need to do anything about it, they move into that situation with permission, and that permission may not show up as just as somebody saying, "Well, please help me," bandage my arm or something. It could happen in lots of different ways. A person who's functioning out of awareness rather than out of some kind of ego state of I got to protect mine and I got to. That they'll function. Just like we all have this, but quite often you'll see in an emergency, when there's an emergency, someone, if you're standing by the road and you see a child run out in front of a car, there's a good chance you'll go after that child, try to make sure they don't get hit. And you won't think about it. You won't think, oh, wait a minute, if I chase after that child, I could get killed too. You wouldn't think about it. You would just, and it wouldn't necessarily be an impulse. It would be something you just would have to do, have to take care of, especially if it was your child.
Would you say it's an instinctive habit?
Well, it's probably not habitual because it rarely happens to you. So to start with that. And then as far as you say instinctual, I think a little bit. I think there's a little bit of, preservation of one's family and if it's your daughter, there's a stronger feeling for your daughter than would be for a stranger. But for a stranger, it's still pretty strong. And so for the person operating out of the pain of the composite would resonate with people and would feel that. This doesn't mean they would be overwhelmed by it, but they could be. His Holiness the 16th Karmapa, the head of the Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism, who passed away in 1981, that I was, for a short time, was a student of his. And there's now the 17th Karmapa, who has been reincarnated, who is now a young man. But the 16th Karmapa was in Hong Kong once back in the 70s and came out onto a terrace in his hotel, and he was there, his monks were there, and he was there to give some teachings or something like that. He went out and looked over the city and went back and actually started to collapse there and went back and was collapsed and in tears, because when he looked out, all he saw was all the suffering that was happening there. So you could say, well, that's just his imagination, or what a weakling. 16, shouldn't he be strong? I mean, he's a guy. So, but that occurred. More?
No, sir.
Question? Yes.
2 more questions. One from Steve, again from Cleveland.
Yes.
He asks, when we have fears, how we observe fears, we usually are deluded by the fear.
I'm not sure what, I'm not following.
So we have, when we have fears, how do we observe fears? And then are we usually deluded by them?
Yeah, I would say don't concern yourself too much with the fear. Concern yourself with strengthening your awareness. Then you'll be able to see more deeply. Same thing with Sheldon was asking about. Spend some time strengthening that which sees. Our ego is already muscle bound. We think about everything. If the ego was visible, it would be a big bulk. It'd be like what's that green guy? The Hulk. It'd be like the Hulk, It'd be like huge. It'd be like Shoka, really big and muscle bound. So, but the awareness needs to using that relative, needs to have some strength too. So I'm saying this over and over again, but I think it's a good image for people. If you're always leading your life with your thought process, then you operate out of your opinions, your ideas, your hopes, your fears. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's not wrong. It's fine. Go ahead and do that. You've been doing it lifetime after lifetime. Why stop now? But here's an opportunity, and here's an old man telling you this. There's an opportunity to actually begin to strengthen the awareness, so the awareness moves out in front of the thinking process and you begin to live your life in the present moment all the time. You stop worrying about a future. You stop regretting a past. There is no such thing. There's only now. And it's, as has been said, eternal. If you think otherwise, then you're not wrong. Go ahead. Do that. See how that works. Come and see me in 20 years. Well, you can't really do that because I'd be really old then, wouldn't I? Like not here. Huh? In 20 years? I'd be pretty old, wouldn't I? 95? Would it be 95 or 100?
Well, your dance teacher lived to be over 100.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I can't remember. I can't add anyway. Yes.
Question from Lindsay in Kalamazoo.
Lindsay, you and Paul are watching this?
She says, or asks, my question is, are the only actions that are not based in ego choiceless or spontaneous actions?
So I would like to answer this in a way that would be very satisfying. This is a really good question. I would almost have to have a discussion about this. It's a question that the only thing I can say is both based on that and not based on that, because it's not two. You can't find a reference point here. This is what we always keep trying to do. Well, if I just do this, will I be okay? I don't know. No guarantees of anything. I don't guarantee anything. I have nothing to sell. If you walk out and say, well, this is interesting, but not for me, I don't think that's wrong. I don't think it's incorrect. I think I really trust everybody in here and anyone who's looking online. I really trust you to do what you need to do for yourself. I don't sit back and think you should do otherwise. Unless you're Chiazon, in which case he's got to do what I say. So are we at the end of our short journey here? Okay, we can dedicate the minute. Thank you.
In the back of your red chant books is the dedication of merit. And out in the hallway are our donation boxes. We appreciate any help you can provide.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jihu San Chi Sihu Chi Son Bu Sa Mo Ko Sa Mo Ko The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokokoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.